So I was talking about the data stored locally. Okay, so we have the, we configure which tables and which rows in those tables. So for example, organize all rows or just the user-owned rows, the team business unit rows, etc. Or maybe rows that are related to other tables that are stored. Okay, so we've got some options in how we configure that. We also get to configure for each table how often it is synced. How often that data is synced. So perhaps it's every hour. The minimum amount of time is 5 minutes. Canvas apps and model-driven apps don't share the same cached data. So if you've got a model-driven app and a Canvas app, and even though they might use the same offline profile that you've configured, they each store their own cached version of that data. Model-driven apps, if you had 5 model-driven apps, they all use the same cached data, then they would all be using that same cached data. Canvas apps, if you've got 5 different Canvas apps, they can be sharing that same cached data. If you've got a model-driven app and a Canvas app on the same device, they don't share that same cached data. Wasn't actually a problem for us. I'm just telling you in case that could be an issue for someone else. Okay. Offline first architecture. Okay, this here is one of my main problems. Once you switch offline capability on in a Canvas app, it is offline first. Oh, I've got the wrong. One moment. Where's my mouse? Yeah. Right. Okay. Offline first means all the data that users need is stored locally. Okay, so they need an internet connection when they first open the app or install the app, and it opens and then it downloads the data. After that, users work exclusively with the data stored locally on the device. Even when they're online, okay? It's offline first. Once you enable it, it's offline first. So something I didn't mention earlier is when I was talking about what we built, we have in NZBAS, we're creating work orders for technicians to work on. Those work orders have a whole lot of related records. There's the parts that are needed, there's the time entries, there's the tasks that the technician actually has to do, change this filter, check this oil, do these other things, okay? So when we create a work order, we've got a whole lot of related tables and related logic inside NZBAS. Then we're creating a sales order in Greentree. We're taking those parts, that inventory from stock, we're adding lines to that sales order. We're also creating the SharePoint folder for storing any photos that the technician then uploads. As we create a work order, there is a whole lot of other logic that happens server side, because they can do this from the model-driven app or the Canvas app. It's triggered from there, but the logic is on the server. So when we're setting this up, there's a few steps that we need to do, not just flipping the switch. First of all, the tables that we're going to use in our app need to be configured for offline use. So when you're in the Maker portal and you're looking at the table properties, we need to tick, we're ticking this, and be taken offline, okay? Then we turn on offline capability for your app. So that's this one here. You're in the Maker portal, you've got the Canvas app open, you go into the settings of the Canvas app, and you toggle this on. I think this is flipping the switch. Then we configure our offline profile. When you first turn it on, there's an auto-generated profile. But I would suggest that you create your own custom profile, because the auto-generated profile isn't supported for ALM. You can't put it into your solution. Okay, so you're going to want to configure a custom offline profile, and then you want to make sure that you get that offline profile into your solution. When I was doing it, the only way to do that, you had to right-click on the Canvas app in the Solution Explorer and add required objects. But I suspect that over time, you'll be able to add that profile directly from within the Solution Explorer. So this is part of when we're configuring the offline profile. This is part of the screen where we're adding the tables. So here, for example, I've added the work order table. I've said all rows, but you can say related rows. And then if it's related rows, then you have a list of relationships. You've got a maximum of 15 relationships that are supported. And yes. Right, and you've got to make sure you get your offline profile added to your solution. Okay, the limitations. The grey ones weren't a problem for us. The black ones were where we had a problem. Okay, the maximum number of records, 3 million, not a problem for us. We're never going to hit that anytime soon. Is
that only for offline records?
Offline, yes, this is offline capability. And in your offline profile cache, you can get to store 3 million records max.
Is that per table or in total?
In total. The sync happens only when Power App's mobile app is open. So the mobile player has to be open. The Power App has to be running in the foreground. Okay, so the mobile player has to be open, running in the foreground, and the device is unlocked. That's when the sync happens. If the mobile player is not running, or if the device is locked, it's not syncing the data. It doesn't run in the background, like it's not like perhaps like, you know, the Google Play Store downloads things in the background thing. It doesn't work like that. So the mobile player has to be open. Okay, there's no programmatic way to force it to sync. A user has to manually sync it. Apart from when you configure your profile and you say, okay, I want this table every 5 minutes, but otherwise, us as a maker, we can't say, make sure you get the data now, make sure you get the data right now. Okay, flows can't be run offline. That's logical for me. I knew that. I said there's going to be certain things we won't be able to do while it's offline. There'll be some things we can't do offline, everything else we'll be able to do while we're online. Many relationships aren't supported. Now, there's a bit of a conflict here because in one part of the docs it says many relationships aren't supported, and then when another part it says up to 15 relationships and only one of them many is supported. And so, but for us, this was a bit of a problem because we wanted to use access teams for access to the work order. So for those who are not familiar with access teams in Dataverse, it's part of the Dataverse security model. An access team effectively is a many-to-many relationship between that user and that work order. Okay, limitations on filtering on relationships and how far you can go from the current record to get data. You can go one step, okay? You can go to the parent. You can't go to the grandparent or the great-grandparent. You can't have a list of data, a gallery, and try and attempt to filter it by something in the grandparent record. Self-referential lookups, not supported. Wasn't a problem for us, but if we had, for example, a parent work order and a child work order, that wouldn't work. If you've got in your account, out-of-the-box parent account table, not supported in offline capability. That's what I wanted to talk about there. Okay, what I'm going to go through now is I'm just going to show you how a user actually initiates the sync on the sync. So when you flip the switch to make it online, offline capable, we get a new screen. And it has this blue thing, and we get this globe icon here, okay? And this globe icon, at different points of time, it changes depending on what's happening, okay? So if we do a patch or a submit form and we're creating data, it'll then go like that. because it's syncing. If you're offline and you've created data, it will look like that because it's got data that it needs to sync. So you get this icon on your screen when you flip the switch. And then, will this start my recording? No, okay, I'll go back a step. I'll have to click it from here. Maybe I have to click it from here. No. Okay, so the user clicks that, and then there's this check for updates button. What I do here is I'm just expanding it, showing you that these are the tables that's on there in the thing. And then what I've done there is I've clicked it, and then if you saw then it was then saying syncing, and then it was too quick, but then I clicked the X. Okay, so that's what a user needs to do when they want to get the data. Okay, so we go up here, check for updates, click X. That's what the user does if the user wants to force it. And a lot of the time, they don't need to do that, right? Because it's syncing it's syncing as they need it. Maybe the way the app's designed, so they don't actually need to do that all that often. Not for us, the way that for our app. Okay, so now what I'd like to show you is I've got two things here. This is obviously a very slimmed down version of what we did. So this one will show you is when we create a work order. The work order is the process is triggered by a flow. Okay, so the model driven app or the Canvas app, we pass certain parameters to the flow. The flow then sets off a series of activities. Of creating the related records, it's triggering the integration, getting the green tree information, etc. There's a whole lot of series of steps, quite a bit of logic, lots of rollback logic and failure handling through that process. So that's done server side. There's no way that I'm going to do that in the client, and for some of it literally can't be done on the client. Okay, so it's server side logic. So one of the things is that when the technician is out in the field, they want to be able to create a work order if they're with the customer and they say, okay, you see that machine over there, we really need that, something done on that too, and I'll see that machine over there, it's got something wrong with its brakes or whatever. We want them to be able to create a work order. If they're offline, we knew from the start, if they were offline, they wouldn't be able to do it then. However, the offline first architecture had a significant impact on the user experience of creating new work orders. So I'm going to click this and we'll watch this one first. So what happens is I'm clicking the plus up the top. I'm filling in some data. This is obviously just 3 fields here that I'm picking up some data, and then selecting the data. Then down the bottom, I'm going to click this button, and in the background we've got a flow running. That's the real message that we display because it takes a bit longer than this. And then the flow returns the GUID. So then we use that GUID to navigate to the screen that has that record and show that record to the user. Okay, so we're using that same logic, model-driven apps, custom page, or Canvas app. Okay, so it was quite straightforward. It takes a bit longer than that because there's a few more things happening, but we were able to move nicely to the work order screen. Okay, so now let's have a look at the same thing when we have offline enabled. So it's now offline first. I can't really see because of the sun. And like that. Okay, so I'm clicking the plus, I'm entering, randomly just finding any old data. Now I'm going to go create. Okay, so yep, we're creating. Oh, okay, so now what we need to do, I don't display the GUID for the users, but that, I should have stopped that 1 moment. Let me go back a second. Okay, but this is the real message that we were displaying. I didn't display the GUID, but we had to say this. Okay, so okay, users, now what you got to do, I can't programmatically, I can't programmatically force the sync. What you've got to do, okay, you need to go up here to the globe. Okay, you need to tap the globe. You need to tap check for updates, and then you need to tap go to record at the bottom of the screen. Maybe I could have put that at the top of the screen to make it less distance for them to travel. Okay, so now that's what I'm doing. So now I'm, oh, it started again, sorry. That's how I'm entering this. I can create. Okay, we're creating. Okay, right. Now I'm going to go up there. Okay, I'm going to check for updates. Woo, yeah, I'm syncing. Cool. Now I'm going to go there. Okay, I'm going to go to record. Oh, it's not found. Okay. Right, I'm going to go here. Check for updates. Yeah, I'm going to get it this time, and I even check. Oh yeah, there's 8. I think it's there now. Oh, it's not there. Okay, I'm going to check for updates. It wasn't actually this bad for us. So this was last night in my hotel room on a hotspot. But during our UAT, and when we were actually trying it with the technicians, at most they had to do it twice. Okay, so last night I had to do it 3 times. So it wasn't that bad for us in the. Stop. See it? Is it paused? Stop. Okay. Okay. So that was one of the things. Okay. So all of the other data that we created worked perfectly fine. Okay, so the related tables, when the technicians were adding their time, we were doing either a patch or a submit form, and it worked perfectly. It worked really great. It was fantastic. We've got some plugins. We had plugins that were running. If you're online, when the plugin, because if you're online, it's offline first, but if you're online, when you create the record through a patch or a submit form, then it gets the little thing up here and it updates it automatically. It sends that data automatically. So we had some plugins that were running, and like we were to get a purchase order number, and they had that. So long as they were online, they got that number, within a second or something. So the other things worked great, but this really didn't work great. Okay, other.
Sorry, so just a confirm.
Yes.
Because it was Power Automate.
Mm-hmm.
In this scenario here, it's failing because it's trying to call Power Automate.
So no, it's not. So in this scenario, so remember I returned the GUID?
Yeah.
So Power Automate returns the GUID. So Power Automate had done its thing. Yes. The record existed on the server. It did not exist in that app because it was created on the server, and this app is just working locally. Okay, so we had to and if the user didn't check for updates, it would arrive a few minutes later. Yeah. So it's just because that logic is server side. Yep. The other records that we were creating with a patch or a submit form, they worked fine. They were available straight away. With a bit of a caveat. Yes. Right. Okay. Multi-level relationships are not supported. So here I've got a bit of an ERD, a slimmed down ERD. Let's take a look at it. Ignore this. I've actually got my crow's foot around the wrong way. I noticed that this morning. Okay, so we've got a work order. We've got an account. We've got a primary contact on that, a contact for that order, and we've got an order for an asset on that order. So that asset is a piece of machine that we're going to fix or service. So okay, so we're one step away. We can get data from here. Hang on a minute. In my work order list, I need a filter by manufacturer. I'm the LTEC technician. I just want to see the LTEC orders. We can't filter by manufacturer. We couldn't filter by asset model. We can't, in the work order screen, there's logic on the asset model that we need in order to know which fields must be enabled. If that asset model has machine hours, we've got to make sure that technician is entering the machine hours. Okay, we couldn't do that. Well, we could. I'll show you how we ended up doing it. Okay, so this is our orders filter. This is on this screen. Imagine here there's a gallery of records, and they entered. This is how they filter that gallery. Can't have the asset model, can't have the manufacturer. Assets. Again, there's a gallery here. Can't filter by manufacturer. We actually got around this by the naming convention. The asset naming convention is manufacturer, asset model, serial number. So in this search field, in the search fields, then they're searching on the asset name, okay? And so they can get the SANEs, they can get the LTEX, but we can't have a drop down for them to pre-select that model or thing. Okay, so this is how I got around the machine hours. We got the form, and we got a variable for the form, that's the work order. Then I had to have a variable for the asset so that I could retrieve the machine hours. Okay, so this line here was how it was working for me in the Maker portal. It was working perfectly. Then you put it on a mobile device and it doesn't. Okay, so yes, so I had to have either a local or a context variable to store the next stage along in the relationship, so that I could use the metadata that we need to enforce the logic. Which of course adds complexity and maintenance overhead to the app, because for the first release, I can guarantee there's going to be somewhere where I forget to reset it, forget to set it, or put it back to blank and then resetting it. Okay. So when in the live monitor, so this is the live monitor when you've got your Canvas app. I'm in the Maker portal. You just scan the QR code so that you can see when the people are playing it in the mobile app. This is the request, and then I didn't realise the multi-step relationship wasn't supported. So, and it was working fine on my mobile player. Then we'd be playing it on the mobile app. We'd be getting these errors, and it's because of this statement here. And when you run it through a browser, we don't get this error. This error is because of the not supporting multi-level relationships. Right. What would we do differently next time? I did think perhaps I shouldn't be so impatient, but that was because when I was building it, I was getting so frustrated with the errors that I turned off offline capability. I thought, I'm going to add that in later. I just need to get this first release. I need to get a beta release out. I need to be getting them to be just like Fusion mentions, success, rapid iteration for success. I wanted to be getting the beta version out for them to play with. So I turned it off. I said, look, I'm just going to turn it off because it's really it's frustrating me. So we'll turn it back on a bit later. I just wanted to know that what we were building was getting feedback on what we were building. Would I reassess the work order creation sequence? I think about that. I asked myself that, but actually I wouldn't, because I'm not going to duplicate that logic. Some of it has to be server-side, and I'm not duplicating the logic in two places. I did wonder if I could have, rather than having the variables, whether I could have used formula columns to get the grandparent metadata. So what I mean by that is, on my work order, have a formula column that is asset.assetModel.manufacturer or asset.assetModel has machine hours. But I really don't like that, because to me that's I don't want to add columns to my database when I don't need to. Probably because I'm a bit older, and we used to have to really be really mindful of how much storage we were consuming in our rows and our tables. Okay, this is my wish list. If you work with offline capable model-driven apps, you might know that we have this setting that allows users to work in online mode. I really want that for Canvas apps. That's what I want for Christmas. I want that. And multi-level relationships. I'd really like those to be supported.
Seems logical to have it, doesn't it? You'd think.
Yeah, and it's certainly in the browser. Play it in a browser, and it is supported. And it's just mobile player, offline capable. If you turn off the offline capable, then you don't. Then they're fully supported. Thank you very much to the supporters. I had a different slide. I think this here. I think your app Rising is supposed to be there. I'd really like to say thank you to Hamish and Raghavan and all of the people who actually put their time into organising this, because these events wouldn't happen without them organising it. Thank you very much to the sponsors. Does anyone have any questions? Hey.
The app that you show. Is that from Microsoft? Is that your app that you?
The example, the offline demo.
The offline monitor one.
Oh, the monitor. That's just monitor from the live monitor. You know, live when you're in the Power app, when you're in the Maker portal, and you have an app, and it's a Microsoft one. It's not mine. It's a part of the. It's one of the tools for the Canvas app. Yep, and it tells you, it's really useful because you see every call the app is making. And what I didn't show you is I think they're actually doing work on this area, because when I very first was getting the error, I wish I had taken a screenshot, because it was trying to get. The primary contact of the account, I wasn't using it anywhere in the app, nowhere in the app, but that get statement, it was trying to get the primary contact of the account, even though the account associated with Workreader, even though nowhere in my app I was using it, and I couldn't change that. But it didn't, and then I did my little mock-up and it didn't do it. So maybe there's been some improvements in that area.